Well, good morning, everyone. For those of you that I don't know or don't know me, I'm Ron Hendrick, Dean of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And thanks, everyone, for coming out on a beautiful Michigan spring day. A little atypical, but not atypical enough. It's a great pleasure to be able to welcome a number of guests to campus today, but particularly to welcome Secretary Perdue. Many of you know at least a little bit about Secretary Perdue, but Sonny Perdue was born into a farming family in Bonnier, Georgia. His experience as a farmer, agribusinessman, veterinarian, state legislator, and governor of Georgia has given him a very unique perspective on all that we do, both on this campus and around the state and in agriculture generally. And it seems, based on his resume, he has done all, or at least most of it himself. A year ago, he became the 31st U.S. Secretary of Agriculture. It's a pleasure to welcome Secretary Perdue.
Well, good morning, and thank all of you for coming out today. It's been a great tour so far with the Ag School and Natural Resources here. And Dean, you've put on a good show. It's been fascinating. One of the reasons we get out here is to look at the breadth and the depth and the width and the amazing things that agriculture does all across this country. And I'm convinced more and more as I get around that the relationship between USDA and our land grant colleges is just critical, from research and all the things we're doing together. Congressman, I've had the opportunity to tell the President, while we talk about the demise of American manufacturing and we see the productivity of American agriculture, I said I think if we'd had the basic research, the applied research, and the delivery system of the Extension Service, I don't think we'd be talking about the demise of American manufacturing. But American agriculture has truly been amazing in so many ways from the applied research standpoint. Everywhere we went this morning, the thing that I was most impressed about was that Michigan State University and its Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources was focused on food production, food quality, food safety, and from the producer perspective. And what that has created, as the Dean and I discussed, was a great integrated relationship between the producers of Michigan in many components and various crops, and it's a very diverse state, as you know, but create a very much of an ownership, stakeholder ownership of the university, our Michigan State University here, and its Agriculture and Natural Resources Department. So those are the things that I found here today, and I just want to talk to you briefly about a few things. These are listening and learning sessions for me, so you're going to have to earn your keep this morning as well. I want to hear from you, and we're going to have a Q&A session as we go forward, but one of the reasons we get out here is to look and to see the different states and the various components of what American agriculture does and is across the country. But really, it's mostly to hear from our customers, the stakeholders of you who are the beneficiaries sometimes, and when you think about regulatory, the non-beneficiaries of some of the things that we do or don't do. And what we want to do is use these as reasons, examples of how we can learn to serve you better. Just like the dean and the college here is having stakeholder meetings all the time and inviting producers and other associations in to collaborate in many really integrated ways. That's what I want USDA to do nationwide, from state to state, is to understand how we can serve you all better. I have a pretty simple vision for the United States Department of Agriculture, and that is, and many people kind of roll their eyes sometimes when they hear this vision, Congressman, is to be the most effective, the most efficient, the most customer-focused agency in the federal government. We want our customers to be able to say that, and you don't get that way without listening, and that's why we're here today, to learn from you. The lab and the plant tour was amazing, from the greenhouses to understand how just lights, colored lights, can change texture, flavors, growth rates, and many other things that way, to go to the animal science side and to see how the interrelationship of animal health and human health is working collaboratively in fertility issues, from it whether it's in the dairy industry or whether it's in the human infertility issue, which is a huge challenge. These are things that colleges of agriculture and natural resources across the country are doing for our country. So it's a pleasure to be here. This is our first stop on our first 2018 Back to Our Roots RV tour. We had a couple last year that were very beneficial. One to the west, began in Wisconsin up through Minneapolis, over into Iowa and Illinois, then back to D.C., and then the second one back through the Northeast. And it's amazing. While you don't think of that much agriculture in the Northeast, it was pretty amazing to see many of the things that you've done with the farm-to-table aspect here played out there in the Northeast with little mini greens and different things that we saw from horticulture. And what we found is throughout all of those tours, many of the issues are the same. And agricultural people are much the same in many parts of the world. I think the bedrock of American values and American economy and American productivity. So this is our first stop here. We'll be heading from here down to south to Ohio and then into Kentucky and then back to D.C. as well. But it's mostly to hear ideas, to hear concerns, to hear questions, to hear problems, and to hear solutions to some of those problems that we may not be aware of, that you all understand out there, how we can be better stewards of your tax money, better regulators of a wonderful agricultural economy, and better assistance in using the abundance of American agriculture from a trade perspective as well. I know the Dean has shared with me, and many of your people today talking about that have talked about the research dollars in which we at USDA and NIFA participate, as well as the thing I was most gratified to hear about, Dean, was the relationship from the producer community too. I'm kind of a skin in the game kind of guy, so I like everybody to have an investment in what we're learning and what we're discovering. And you all are right in the center, USDA and the federal taxpayer, bringing research dollars down in a competitive way to Michigan State. Michigan State, with its broad array of assets here in the research community, and then producers, and you use the word, I think we used to call them assessments, but taxing themselves to learn better ways to do things. In the laboratory that we saw about plant diseases, whether it's fusarium or other things, we had a producer right here that talked about how valuable their work right there and downy mildew and those kind of things are to the producer on the ground with some valuable value-added crops in Michigan. So that's where real research, I'm a practical kind of guy. I like research that can be applied immediately. I know you have to have theory and you have to have basic sciences. You have to have basic research, and we didn't see a lot of that today, although I know it goes on here. But the degree of applied research I saw today and the degree of outreach from the Extension Service down to the farms and fields of Michigan was really, really amazing to me today to see that relationship. So we appreciate the investment that we see here, that USDA and our federal partners, federal taxpayers actually are getting a money's worth here at Michigan State. So we also saw part of this research being how we can conserve our water, our resources, our nutrients better. I know, Congressman, that's been a big issue for you over the phosphorus runoff and the algae bloom that you've worked on so hard to do that and to make sure that we are very mindful. I think our farmers are much more conservation conscious than they ever have been, understanding we've got to be really good stewards and of our land, our water, our nutrients, and growing these crops, as well as our livestock facilities that understand how to do them better. So we want to understand from the research you all do here how we can be better stewards and water quality research, and that depends on learning from these labs how much is needed, how much is too much, and from the drone demonstration we saw how we can determine specifically where is the phosphorus level, the nitrogen level, where is the water needs there within those fields to do that. So the great news about all this was really that agriculture is alive and well, and it's flourishing and thriving in places like Michigan State University, where you undergraduates and graduate students and PhD candidates are getting a good practical education in how to go out into the workplace and to innovate and to create and design and to develop new products and new procedures, new processes, maybe even new foods for us to have to serve a very growing world and hungry mouths all across the world. Obviously, forestry is also a big component here in Michigan, and we're very much appreciative of Congress giving us an opportunity to use new forest management techniques to battle wildland fires, as well as a funding relief disaster funding relief, where we were having to kind of borrow from Peter to pay Paul over wildland funding, fire funding. Congress, in this latest bill, gave us the opportunity to show what we can do in the Forest Service, and we look forward to doing that as well by having good forest management, healthy forest techniques that will hopefully keep wildland fires down and to move through in a way that makes all of us proud. Healthy forests are good for, obviously, recreation. They're good for wildlife. They're good for the health of communities, and they're good for the economy. Well, those local economies depend on those natural renewable resources from our forests for the economy, for sawmills and processors. The other thing that the dean was telling me about here at Michigan State was the value-added processing. We know that as producers, we just don't want to sell a commodity product, but we want to understand how we can further refine and develop that product into more of a consumable fashion here. And I was particularly pleased to hear of the relationship that you all have with your community college network here. That's very unusual, and frankly, in Georgia, I really was frustrated by the lack of articulation we had with our major universities and our community colleges and technical college aspect. There was always a tension and a jealousy there, but it looks like you all have overcome that, and the people, students of Michigan, as well as the producers of Michigan, I think are the beneficiaries of a great articulation agreement in that way. So I want to compliment you in that area. Wherever I go, typically there are about 3 areas that most people and farmers want to talk about, and I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to prepare your questions, and let's talk about these. But here we understand, even before these trade disruption weeks, the last few weeks, we hear about trade, we hear about a legal farm workforce, and we hear about regulation almost everywhere we go. Those are the top 3 things that we hear about. Obviously, there's a lot of anxiety over trade issues right now, and the president understands that, but the president is committed to no longer allow China to get away with unfair trade practices. They joined the WTO in a little over 2000, committed to play by the rules, and that just hasn't happened. And this latest issue with intellectual property theft is one of those examples. And I know farmers are patriots, and we want to make sure that America thrives and survives. And the president's also aware that we need to have processes and understanding that we're not going to let farmers just be the tip of the spear that's sacrificed in a way for trade disruptions. So he understands that. We are giving him advice and counsel over how to mitigate some of those issues as we go forward. We know that over the weekend, China announced some trade retaliatory measures regarding some of the things here in Michigan, both cherries and fruits and apples, as well as pork. And we understand that and know that the president's not going to stand by idly and let China destroy our agricultural economy over retaliatory when he's trying to make them play by the rules of from an intellectual property theft perspective. So with that in mind, we obviously are working very tirelessly, Congressman, on really a legal farm workforce issue. You've got a lot of fruits and vegetables here in your state and a lot of hand labor that requires to do that. A lot of H-2A workers. That's a program that's become, that has been very onerous and very complicated to to comply with. Many people just give up, and we're working on with the Department of Labor, Department of Homeland Security, as well as the Department of State, in order to have a more integrated, focused way that farmers can utilize this program for a legal farm workforce. Certainly regulation is a key. Many times we've put regulations on top of regulations that may not have any real beneficial effect right now. We're looking at every one of those, and we've got it on our website where you can report those. And we've also got some cards here that I want to show you this morning. We're out here and we're serious. It says, we want to hear from you. And it's at, you can visit usda.gov/tellsonny. So that's what we want to hear from. We're serious about that. The only way we can meet your expectations is to know when we're not meeting them and how we can do better to meet them. So we got these cards here we'd like you to take here. It gives you a phone number as well as a web address there that you can look and report those things. I don't know how many government visits you've ever had, but you won't find many phone numbers on these things, as you know, and that most of you try to hide, well, don't call me, I'll call you kind of deal. But this is, you tell Sonny at that phone number, or put on your ideas on that web address as well. So that's what we want to hear from. But I know I want to hear from you, and I'm going to stop talking. Thank you, Dean. Thank you for all of your faculty and staff, and for the president and the provost being at the breakfast this morning to welcome us. It's been a very hospitable visit. I told the group this morning the hospitality was just over the top with grits this morning, serving grits. So that was quite a treat for a Georgia boy. We don't get a lot of grits in D.C. either, but had some great cheese grits from the food services here this morning. I want to thank you for all that. But I know this building has pretty good acoustics in here. I was afraid at one time y'all were going to make me get in the ring and y'all were going to auction me off. But if you'll just speak up, and we got a microphone here. So if you can't be heard, we got a microphone that will do that. And I want to address anything or hear your comments, address any questions you may have about what we're doing at USDA, so that we can learn from you, take these ideas back, work with Congress. Ranking Member Stabenow's staff is here. Joe is here, and she is the ranking member on the Committee on Agriculture, and he'll be hearing what you hear as well. But we try to inform Congress. As you know, the Farm Bill is coming up, and that committee has a major part of writing that Farm Bill. We're just sort of advisors and consultants and technical advisors when they need it. But if you want to talk about the Farm Bill, tell us what type of things you'd like to see changes in there. I will mention one other thing that Congress has already addressed, and earlier in the balanced budget amendment, that was providing for dairy. I know Michigan is a big dairy state, and some of you were heard in the Canadian Class 7 milk. There's a lot of stress on dairies today, on farm dairies out here, and we want to be very mindful of that. They've tried to create a margin protection program that really works. We know the one prior to that in the 14 Farm Bill was not as effective as they had hoped it was. They've made those changes, and I'm hoping that those changes in the margin protection program will enable you to look and maintain that safety net of flexibility. Regarding the farm program, Farm Bill, that's really what we're after, is a safety net that allows good producers to produce for the marketplace with market economics rather than farm programs. That's the goal of a good farm program for a Farm Bill, is how it will allow you to make sound market economics based on market signals that you perceive and your ability to move within that environment. So that's what we want to do. With that in mind, I want to thank you all for coming out. Students, you all please participate in questions and ask anything you like. Nothing's off the table, so please ask some questions, and we'll be happy to respond. And with that, I want to thank you for welcoming me and Mary and our team to Michigan State University today. Thank you very much.